Happy 2025. We're kicking it off here on Techstrong Gang. Hello, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Group, and welcome to 2025. It's our very first Techstrong Gang episode of the new year. We're excited to bring it to you. We have some of our core gang people with us, and we're going to be talking about what we think 2025 has in store for you. Got a lot to go over. Let me introduce you to our gang members right off the bat. First of all, joining us from home in Colorado, he's a Futura VP analyst, Techstrong CTO, my friend Mitchell Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, Happy New Year.
Good to be here. Welcome. Hello from snowy Colorado. We had some snow this weekend. So, we're living the good life.
I don't know if snow's living the good life, but hey, good for you.
It is here. You're a skiing destination.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's good for skiing. Well, it probably is snowing by our next guest house too, because she's also high up in the mountains. She's the Deploy Hub CEO, open source aficionado extraordinaire, our friend Tracy Ragan. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. And no, we're having beautiful weather in Santa Fe. We haven't got quite the snow yet. So, I've been working, but I feel guilty for not going out and enjoying the weather. It's been so nice. So I'm hoping it continues.
I hope so too.
Bro, I'm okay without snow.
Me too. I don't know if it's snowed up in New York yet, though, but our chief officer, Bizarre's up in Westchester County. What's the weather report there?
We had a fierce 2 inches of snow that stuck around for 48 hours. So, it was kind of, a new experience in New York. Apparently it hasn't snowed here in any significant volume in a while.
The thing about snow in New York is after 24 hours, it gets kind of dirty. Yeah. I don't like that. Well, if anyone's interested, we have not had any snow here down in South Florida. It has been around 80 degrees, and actually around New Year's, the weather turned nice for the first time in I don't know how long, and I was able to go on my boat and enjoy some of the beach in South Florida, what we're known for here around Christmas, New Year's time. So it was a great holiday. We were off for about a week. I hope you all enjoyed your time off as well. I know, Mitchell, you didn't. You were under the weather.
Yeah, a little bit under the weather. I'm doing better now, though. Much better. Not dead yet.
Yeah, did you have a cold? I caught one myself. It's like a 5-day job.
I got that strep that was going around. So not fun.
Oh, you were sick too, Mike?
Yeah, I caught a cold. I think it was my own fault. I went to the Pinstripe Bowl and it was raining, and so there you go.
A lot of people I know in cold weather had the flu, strep, colds. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm glad you're all feeling better, though. So,
hey, I went. The Pinstripe Bowl was at Yankee Stadium, and a team from Boston lost, so it wasn't so bad.
Well, as long as we're talking sports, I'm looking for the Orange Bowl's coming down here next Thursday night, and it's going to be Penn State. We are Penn State versus the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, who I thought would not beat Georgia, but they did handedly.
Couple of classic powerhouses, right? And
I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of Thursday the 9th, we also, of course, we lost President Carter over the break, and he lived to be 100, though. And had quite a productive life after leaving the White House. There is life after the White House. And Thursday the 9th is going to be his, National Day of Mourning, funeral session, whatever. And we did have our annual event scheduled for Thursday the 9th. But in respect to President Carter and the National Day of Mourning here in the U.S., we are moving Predict to the following Tuesday, which is January 14th. We'll be sending out emails to everyone who's registered and updating for promos and social media and so forth. But we are going to tip our hats to Jimmy Carter. It's funny, not so much for what he did as president, though there was some important things he did in president, including the Camp David Accords, but almost more for just the decent human being he was. And well, we're not going to get into politics on the first day of 2025, but he was a decent human being, and out of respect, we're going to move predict. Mike, 2025. What do you?
Well,
Speaking of predicts, what do you think?
well, you said that we weren't going to get into politics in the first thing in 2025, and since you and I frequently disagree, I must say you're wrong because that's exactly where we're going.
Get Brandon in the mic.
Well, I guess the new year, same as the old year. Go ahead.
But I'm going to start from the far right, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Steve Bannon is out of jail and up to his usual tricks again, and he seems to have targeted Elon Musk, and he's going to bring a boatload of IT issues into the political spectrum. He's already done it with, there's been a fight over these visas that we give tech workers has already been a topic of discussion. I think that's going to become a much more heated conversation. He's also starting to tag Elon with being too close to China, and that's starting to catch some traction out there. So we're going to see all these issues around semiconductors and everything else become a bigger issue. And then I'll bet two other things. I bet that he will discover that AI and EVs are driving up the cost of electricity for the average consumer, and he's going to start banging on that drum. And then finally, he's going to wait for a big merger to happen and then go after Elon and say, hey, you're part of this big tech conspiracy, and you're basically going to try to hamstring us all again with the whole conversation about, who's being censored for what. But it seems to me, here's the prediction, is that IT is going to be front and center in this political fight that's going to happen, and it's not going to happen on the left. It's going to happen on the right.
Well,
I think that's a really good prediction. That's an interesting prediction, no doubt.
I think also, we're already seeing, with the Federal Appeals Court striking down the net neutrality things that the FCC was trying to do. And we're going to see a lot of things changing on the tech front just because of administration changes and philosophies and Supreme Courts and courts and all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be kind of I don't know if the rough and tumble is the right word, but it's going to be an interesting roller coaster ride here this next year or plus.
I just don't think anything will get done. So I don't know it might be a pretty flat ride. I think we'll have a lot of I don't know, hot air, but I don't know if anything will change. And sometimes hot air is great for disruption, right? And maybe we need a little disruption. Maybe that's why the country chose the person that they chose. But again, I think it will be a lot of hot air because incompetence doesn't always get things done. And I think we'll see a lot of that, to be quite honest. That's my prediction.
It's true that we may be looking for some more adult supervision, to Mitch's point. If we don't have any of these agencies who are in charge of anything, then who is going to make the ultimate call? Because it might just always land on the president's desk, I guess. But they'll have to have a law, and then to Tracy's point, you have to get somebody in Congress to agree to something. So I don't know, Alan. Dysfunction, more of it. What do you think?
I'm trying real hard not to be the mahi or wahoo that's going to take this bait.
Oh, come on, Alan.
Unleash the Kraken. Unleash the Kraken.
Unleash it, please.
Haven't we had enough of Steve goddamn Bannon?
Apparently not.
This is an anarchist who would be only happy bringing down our way of life. And when are people going to wake up to that crap? I mean, I'm no Elon Musk fan. God knows it. If you've listened to me, you know that's to be true. But first of all, you can't blame Elon for everything that happens in the world of tech, number one. Number two, Steve Bannon plays the part of the troglodyte king, but built his empire by using technology. So he's a fraud. He's a fraud. And I think his 15 minutes are up. And, I think Donald Trump and the administration would do well to just freeze him out as they did the last time, right? Freeze him out. Nothing good comes out of this man for our country or our citizens. Does big tech need some guardrails? Yeah, probably. Is this the administration with the oligarchs, financing it to do it? Probably not. It's going to be a laissez-faire, wild, wild west. We're going to have ups, downs. We're going to have the usual chaos that Donald Trump likes to wallow in. That's going to be the fact. Honestly, keep your head low, get through these 4 years, and hopefully the people of the United States the common sense somehow will return here.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of an audience, he continues to draw, whether that'll become narrower people that, strongly view what he views, or, is it kind of the larger MAGA audience, if you will. I love this quote by, you remember the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait?
Sure.
Very popular, long guy. He had this quote. He had this thing in one of his sets a long time ago. He said, when I was in high school,
Done anything recently, Mitch?
no, I don't think he has either. He said, I found out in high school that I was 5th from the bottom of my class. So I went and found the other 4 guys and I became their leader. So maybe that's what we have here with Bannon. We'll see.
Yep. I agree. But, and quite frankly, I don't think the U.S. will be the center of government action in regard to tech. I think it'll stay at the EU.
Oh, certainly in terms of regulation. If anything,
Yeah.
it'll get less in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will not. I don't think we'll drive any of the new policies that's going to come out of the EU. And if we want to do business there, we're going to have to follow it. So,
But what's interesting also, though, not from even a tech point of view, but from a political point of view, is this is classic, political theory, right? So now you have the right ascendant with all 3 branches of government and the judiciary for the most part, right? With a packed Supreme Court. And here they are self-destructing, right? You'll have the tech heads at war with the diehard troglodyte MAGAs. And so, will they be able to govern given that divide? And probably, it's going to create some chaos. It's going to create some paralysis, and so be it. So be it.
exactly. So something you said, Alan, you used the term laissez-faire. I predict. Well, let me back up. Okay, we have to talk about American Airlines. We have to talk about American Airlines sending out an update on Christmas Eve. I had a friend coming in from Chicago, and his flight was delayed for 24 hours, and he spent the night, Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport with 800 other people who were stranded because of that release. Now, I want to point out that we have this, John Schwartz talked about this once, and I think about it all the time, authoritative bias. I feel like we have in 2025, we are going to be looking at this authoritative bias across many industries, politics. Somehow Elon Musk is the person that we should turn to, right? When it comes to fixing our government. He has no background in it, but let's go ahead and put him there. I don't know why. And we haven't tricked that kind of philosophy in that. And
Murder.
I know, it's like, you think that would be the exact opposite. But why do we still have, after Delta, had their experience with CrowdStrike, why do we still have third parties updating software? And I believe, and I predict this, that we're going to see more of that kind of problem in 2025 because we have forgotten how to do DevOps. We have thrown the DevOps process away because we're relying on authoritative bias. And it's becoming part of our culture in a very odd way. I mean, there was no reason for anybody to ever do a release Christmas morning, Christmas Eve morning. That was just stupid. Or whenever they did it, maybe on the night of the 23rd. Whatever it did, it stranded a lot of people. Well, why would they have done that? Why didn't the testing process go through? What happened to DevOps and where has it gone? So I really think that we're going to see a lot of these massive disruptions, because I believe that we have that authoritative bias now in our culture, and it has taken over some of our processes. And in DevOps, that is so true, because now we've seen 2 airlines have massive shutdowns because of an update done by a third party, which I find to be absolutely crazy, crazy, crazy. How on earth are we doing that at this point in time? And we've been talking about DevOps and tightening up releases and having a process for how long? 30 years, as long as I've been in business. So that just baffles me, and I'm afraid that 2025 we're going to see more of it, and we'll probably see a lot more vulnerabilities come through and hit the market.
Having been in security as long as I have been, I have a little different view, Tracy. I don't blame the third parties, right? Mitchell will tell you, we had the brilliant idea when we were selling IDSs that instead of just selling it as software, we were going to sell, well, first, we were selling appliances. Now, there's nothing fancy about the appliances. They were x86. But what was great about it is we knew what hard drive, what network card, what software, what was the physical footprint of our appliance, even if it was just a Dell box under the hood. And then we weren't selling enough appliances, and there wasn't a lot of margin selling hardware. And we said, what, back with it, we'll just it runs on x86 Linux. We'll just sell software. And we started selling software. What a friggin' mistake. What a mistake. Because all of a sudden, we had to make sure our software ran on every network card, every data hard drive, every configuration, every motherboard, every back in the bus and the IRQ conflict error and all of that. And it drove our support and development. And Mitch ran support and development. He can tell you this firsthand. We couldn't support all the infinite variations, let alone the Dell Compact HP IBMs. What about all the white box stuff, right? Coming out of
But in
time.
that case, we owned the whole stack, operating system up. So it was a software appliance, if you will. Yeah, that's why that caused so many
So
issues.
it's the same thing for third-party software vendors who are, putting their apps out on platforms. It's very hard to anticipate every configuration, every nuance, every variable that can be on any particular platform. But to me, it's more, Mitch, you remember our friend Peter Fisher at Citigroup back then? Citigroup.
Yeah, CIO at Citigroup.
Yeah, one of the 3 global CIOs at Citigroup. They used to take 90 days to do a Patch Tuesday. So Patch Tuesday came out every Tuesday, right? Oh, excuse me, once a month or whatever it was, the 3rd Tuesday of the month or whatever it was. They were always 3 months behind because they wouldn't roll out that patch until it had been thoroughly tested on their particular systems. They didn't care.
There's a middle ground, though. Equifax is a perfect example. They didn't update that vulnerability for way too long because they didn't want to push it out. But we have gone beyond that. DevOps has actually allowed us to do much more in a much shorter time frame. And there is no reason why, somebody like American Airlines doesn't have a model office system where they deploy those patches before they go out to production.
Yeah, but to your point, it's not an all or nothing, right? We don't have to live in an all or nothing world anymore. And that was one of the lessons with CrowdStrike is don't push the update. Whether you do it on Christmas Eve or morning or, the third Tuesday of January, don't push it all out at once, incrementally, and don't push it in your main hub, right? In Dallas. That was sort of the idiocy of that, right? Put it out there on the edge somewhere that if, Fargo goes down, okay, we're sorry, Fargo, but it's not the main hub or whatever it might be. Sorry, Fargo. But, you know, be intelligent about how you run it, be incremental. You don't have to push it all out everywhere. And that's part of, if you're taking advantage of the cloud, of the network, that's some of the capabilities that you have. Now you have to be able to architect, design things, rework things so that you can do things incrementally. Not everything is easy that way, but that's the world we live in. And you don't build resilient systems without doing that kind of thing.
But also,
I don't think it's authoritative bias, though. I just think it's inertia. I think it's probably the last Monday in the month, there's a regular update cycle, and nobody thought through the fact that that was probably going to impact Christmas on that Wednesday or the Tuesday when they normally do it. And so somebody just hit a button because they were supposed to, because it's that day of the week. And I don't think they had a plan. I think they were just kind of operating on autopilot and didn't realize what was going to happen. And I think that's all too common. I think there's just a lot of these processes that are mindless because nobody actually correlates them to airline traffic.
so
Absolutely. And I agree, Alan. It wasn't the third party's fault. It just like I said about Delta and CrowdStrike, they are responsible for their own systems and making decisions on who can push things out and the process in which it is pushed out. But I do believe that we have forgotten some really basic DevOps principles, and it
Well-
makes me really sad.
oh, no, this is
It really
a
does.
thing here. There's a cultural thing.
It's
Look,
cultural. Yes.
let me go back to our still secure days I was talking about earlier with Mitch and I, right? So we were one of the first to market on what we called, or what the industry called, IPS, intrusion prevention systems. Up to that point, state of the art was IDS, intrusion detection systems. Now, back then I was a young whippersnapper, and I thought, who would be satisfied just detecting an intrusion or an attack, potential attack? Of course, you'd want to prevent it. So if I had the ability to prevent that attack instead of just detecting it, no brainer. No brainer. Well, no bueno. It didn't work like that. People were like, oh no, I can't just block traffic. What happens if that's important to my CEO? I'd rather suffer the attack than have the CEO get mad at me because I blocked his porn or something like that, right? And Mitch, you know this. It took, Mitch and I were both gone from Still Secure before IPS became de rigueur, the standard versus IDS. Same thing in vulnerability management. Is it enough to find vulnerabilities? Heck, why can't we just patch it while we find it? No one does
Perfect.
that.
Yes.
No,
100%.
that's my stuff. Just tell me, give me the telephone book of vulnerabilities. I'll patch them on my own. Right? No.
But the patch should just be done automatically. At least a pull request that says a patch is there.
Tell you what the problem that caused this whole downfall here as I reach into my pocket. This thing. This has ruined software updates. This has ruined security for updating because we've gotten so used to this thing updating on its own in the background that we think that's how it goes. We no longer, none of you can tell me which apps were updated on your phone when, because it just happens. We have said, oh no, it's just an update. It goes on all the time. We don't worry about that crap no more. We don't do our QA testing. We don't do our DevOps. We don't do a digital twin. We don't do a test environment. My phone updates 24/7. And it's been the ruin. And it's responsible for CrowdStrike. It's responsible for American Airlines. It's responsible for all of it.
Same can be said for all the SaaS applications, which some of those are. Well, you're starting off 2025 a little growly there, Alan.
I'm sorry.
So let me somebody has said AI yet, so I'll bring it up. To your point about authoritative bias, a lot of what is coming out is agents that will do work for you, like updating software, applying patches, maybe doing upgrades. That's the path at least we're headed to. Are we running into a brick wall there of the authoritative bias as well? AI did it. It figured out it was supposed to do it, and it's supposed to know how to do it. So we let it, I blanked up, I trusted it, just to quote a famous movie.
Flounder. What
Flat
am I going to tell Fred?
on my car. So, not his car. But it seems
Well, if we
that's the next thing we're going to run into, right?
if
So
we
let me put
continue
a
down
theory
this
out
road,
Good. Mike?
go Mike.
So let me put a theory out there that do you think we'll see in the coming year an effort to take back more control from these SaaS apps because people are also going to want to take more control of their data destiny in the age of AI? They're going to want to own that data, be able to apply it and train it and use it where they want. And too much of what they're realizing today may be that, in addition to being dependent on third parties too much, that they don't own their data and they're going to kind of say, hey, we need to take back control of IT in general.
I think it's all relative to what it is, right? If it's the CrowdStrike agent that runs at the OS level and can block anything if it fails or cause it to crash, yeah, I might want to be more diligent about it. If it's the fitness app that my people are using on their phones going over my Wi-Fi network, I don't care about that stuff. Or that's sort of an extreme case, but maybe there's a lesser. If my whatever system goes down internally is not going to stop the manufacturing lines, it's important. I think the thing to take back, it isn't necessarily just a pendulum swing, Mike. I think what we should take back is how do we make our systems resilient, right? Just taking it back just means we now own it when it F's up, right? We're the ones going to be on the hot seat, not the vendor. And we already are with the vendor, but in this case, we're going to be the cause of it if we didn't properly, do whatever the steps are, be diligent about it. My question is, well, what we want to have is, hey, things happen, right? Stuff happens, whether we do it or the vendors happen to do it or the SaaS providers, whatever it is. How do we recover? How do we quickly recover, come back up, go back to the old version, et cetera? We're just on kind of this automatic upgrade path that I think in many cases, we don't know what we would do to get back to the last version of a piece of
And that
software.
was the case with American Airlines. It took them an hour.
Mhm.
It took them an hour to do a rollback. I think that, maybe in 2025, we should revisit chaos engineering
Oh,
and understand that the ability to quickly fix a problem is so much more important than the root cause analysis because we don't know what it could be, it could be somebody sneezed and hit a key wrong, right? That could be the chaos that caused the outage. Probably not, but it could be, right? It could be just a fat finger typo in a configuration that takes forever to find. But chaos engineering taught us that being able to quickly respond to outages and prepare your team to do so is the way forward. And I believe that, I don't think that most companies have really, I doubt if they have game days and trying to be able to teach their staff to be able to quickly get back online. Certainly American Airlines hasn't because an hour is a long time. An hour stoppage means that anybody who has a connection is going to get screwed.
it's about the assists
And
and
that's what happened.
rebounds, not just points, right? How many assists, how many
Yes.
rebounds do we get?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
So
maybe
that's
that
my
connection
prediction
should-
for 2025.
Maybe that connection shouldn't involve me trying to get from one end of Charlotte, North Carolina's airport to the other in 10 minutes, though, right?
That's true.
I read a blog by a flight attendant, and basically she said, if it's less than 7 hours, drive.
Well, there's something to that with all the prep time and everything. I think connection times have gotten shorter to what we think are acceptable.
Well,
Doesn't
no.
work.
So
Doesn't-
here's a little pet peeve of mine that I'd like to see change in 2025. If you speak to the airlines, they're actually going to tell you they're on time more than they ever were. Because what they've done is they've built in buffers into their schedules. So, like, for instance, here in Florida, we have sort of an underground railroad up to New York. Mike knows that from an airline point of view. Every airline here runs like buses from Miami, Lauderdale, PBI into Kennedy, LaGuardia, or Newark. And it's a 2.5 hour, 20-minute flight. But now the airlines are scheduling, they used to schedule them for 3 hours. Now they're 3.5 hour in flight because they're building in time off the gates and stuff like that. But what they're really doing is building in extra time so that they could show they're early more than they're late. And so even though you got a 55-minute layover, right, connection point, you probably have closer to an hour and a half because there's that extra buffer time built in to these flights, assuming everything goes well. And, you could fool some of the people some of the time, but quite frankly, Delta and American reap what they sow because they don't play nice in all honesty, right? And it's not just the two of them. JetBlue does it, Southwest does it, they all do it. They've buffed up the flight times to make it seem like, they're on time or even early, and that pilot when he lands and he thanks you for flying the airline today, and we remember this the next time you're late that we got you in early today. Oh, you got me in on time. It's just your schedule.
Yeah.
You look like a hero. So, yeah.
Right.
And we worry about bias in our large language models, right? We've had bias in data for a very long time.
Yeah. Again, I'll go all Steve Bannon on him.
This is like this is this is like the old sales rep who when his spouse was complaining about the fact that he was traveling too much, so then he started telling his spouse that the show that he was going to was 4 days long when it was actually only 3 days long, and then he comes home the third day, hey honey, I missed you, right?
Yep.
So if I can
Yep, the surgery was a success, but the patient died.
Yes.
if I can turn the lens and focus an area, one of the areas that I'm really most interested in because of the analyst coverage that we do is around code generation with AI. And I think 2025 is the year of the code generation specific LLMs, including code quality, secure code, things like that. We already have some of those available today. I mean, ChatGPT-4, things like Code 5 and 5 Plus, Code Llama, et cetera. OpenAI has their own codex for code generation, but also the other providers like the Microsofts, the GitHubs, the AWSs of the world, having not just generation specialized LLM capabilities, but specialized to their environments. I mean, who knows better than AWS what their environment is like and how best to build applications within it. So I think we're going to see a lot of bifurcation, not just I use Microsoft or I use GitHub's Copilot, and that's my pilot. No, that's your window into whatever LLMs or services that you're going to use. So I think that's going to be the big focus around at least the code generation part of AI.
I think the chip manufacturers are going to get more involved in software too. I
Really?
think like NVIDIA is going to get much more involved in AI, building AI systems than just chips.
Here's my prediction from left field, since I started with right field earlier, but on the left field, I think you're going to see org charts in IT organizations and enterprises be ripped up this year. And I think a lot of that's going to come back to this platform engineering conversation we started in 2024, where a lot of those people are going to decide that, hey, all these little specialist teams that we have created over the years are counterproductive. And they're going to start pulling all that into more centralized functions and require IT people who can do multiple things rather than, standing around saying I'm the infrastructure specialist for this or I'm the cloud architect for that. I think we're going to see a much more homogenous team of IT folks who can manage multiple things, working hopefully more in hand in glove to do things at scale.
Au contraire.
I hope so.
Au contraire. All right.
Point counterpoint.
Like Johnny Carson talking to Ed McMahon. The amazing Karnak. Au contraire, monsieur. So I think you got that platform engineering thing all wrong.
Really?
I think platform engineering is about building silos, not knocking them down. I think platform engineering says, I want my little guys who do that thing. And I want to keep them as a separate team doing their doodads. I want them to communicate, right? I think platform engineering at its heart is about cross-silo communication, not busting down silos. And so those teams are not going to go away. They hopefully will just communicate with the collective and be assimilated. What the,
I believe they'll be assimilated. That's for sure.
yes.
Well, the thing that would drive collapsing it, to your point, Mike, is cost, right? If you can demonstrate true cost savings that don't have a major impact on delivery speed or things like that, maybe it's improving it. That would certainly
Yep.
push you to consolidate.
I think the issue too is like even today, if you look at the cost of IT, the single biggest factor is still labor. And I think people are going to start to look at that harder and say, how do we reduce that particular cost?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have code bake-offs and we'll have platform bake-offs. Let's take my platform design or platform design from one LLM and use another one to compare it against two different LLMs and things like that. Think of the ability we have to compare and analyze information. I finished some papers in 2024 around using AI to really dive into the depths of what an architecture and what functionality and applications performs before you modernize it. That's half the battle, is just knowing what things do and who the people who wrote it aren't around anymore. And if you're going to move it to the cloud or start updating parts of it or maybe rebuild parts of it, what is it? What are you going to leave on the cutting room floor you don't realize? And AI is very good for that. There's a lot of really good analysis tools for that now.
So I got to jump in on this whole LLM issue, though. So here's my prediction for 2025. Something's got to give with LLMs, and there's two issues of it, and 2 points to it in my mind. Number one is, are we serious about organizations near and far being able to create their own LLMs and maintain them? I don't know. Not unless we somehow make it a hell of a lot easier to integrate and stuff like that. And so the logical flow of that is, okay, if they can't create and maintain their own LLMs except for the big guys, they're going to have to use prepackaged LLMs. Who owns the market for prepackaged LLMs? Well, at the very general level, I think we've already seen this market being defined. You've got OpenAI, ChatGPT. You've got Claude by Anthropic. You've got Gemini probably from Google. Apple surprisingly is borrowing or partnering with all of the above, but let's face it, eventually they're going to have their own. Microsoft's OpenAI thing, who knows where that goes.
Musk has invested how many billion in
Right.
AI?
Musk as XAI or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
But Mitch, here's something Brad Feld always told us.
top 3.
If you're not in the top 3, get the hell out. So my projection is by the end of 2025, you're going to have 3 major, let's call them general purpose LLMs, mega hyperscale LLMs, and they will be owned by hyperscale tech companies. Then I think you're going to see a market underneath that for the specialists, for the specialty LLMs, for law, for medicine, for finance, for, I'm hitting the usual suspects, for tech, right? There will be a market for specialized LLMs that are kind of off the shelf, 85% and can be modified 15% for your individual company. And that will be, instead of developing your own LLM, that'll be the LLM you use when not using one of the hyperscaler ones. So I think that's how the LLM market shakes out for 2025, and you heard it here first.
I think you're right, and we're living the first half of your prediction already. We're already see who the major players are, and then there's some things coming up along the side like DeepSeek, which is funded by the Chinese. We'll see if that becomes a hands-off kind of thing. But there are things that are going to come up like that will be new advancements. There's a lot of innovation around how to create LLMs much faster, lower cost, more efficiently. So there's a lot of, we're in that, how do we make it better, faster kind of phase 2. To your point about having specialized, I agree with that. I think the other thing is you'll see more things like their Neural Magic acquisition by Red Hat, which is about deployment of LLMs, deployment of AI software, and access to multiple LLMs. If you look like even at Elastic, they have an environment where you point where you want it, in your vector vector database, if you will, front into your RAG, what model you want to use to be able to do that part of it. So a lot of this is going to be choice, right? And it's going to be built into the software that we use. You don't have to download the LLM necessarily to set it up and use it. You'll use it as part of the service that's online.
I think it's going to be more about, I guess, what people are calling small language models. And I think some of those will be based on foundational LLMs that the big guys are providing. But over time, those LLMs or the small LLMs will become foundations for other LLMs, and they'll start to multiply. And each of those things will become easier for an organization to create. I don't have to create a massive LLM for every task. I can use a smaller language model, and then I can theoretically at least create my own AI agent off of that SLM, and I might go from there. So I think that there'll be a move towards small is beautiful in the space of AI.
You even see the
And
big
I
guys
think that
doing
AI
that too, Mike.
agents,
Yeah.
I think AI agents are going to be a problem as we move forward.
I agree with that.
I always talk about it, but there's going to be so many of them. And if you're not able to kind of version them and track them, we're going to get serious drift in that, which is going to be an issue. And probably bring down airlines.
Yeah, straighten agents.
Well, look,
Come on.
you're going to need
Yes.
agent hygiene, right? You'll need agentic hygiene. Otherwise, you're going to have rogue agents that are floating out there, like you have subscriptions for SaaS products now, right? And I mean, and this is not new in tech. I mean, think about cloud. How many unused sessions, instances are there on an AWS that were open and never closed, right? And they're getting charged every month for it, but it's pennies, and so they don't recognize it.
Software on your computer. How much stuff
Yeah.
do we have installed on our laptops that isn't used?
Hey,
We'll have
Google my
clean up-
refrigerator. I spent early this morning clearing out all the. If we had it during Christmas and it's January 6th, it's
Probably
time
not
to
gonna eat
sort
it.
that out.
I think we'll see a lot of cleanup on IL-6 agents. Go out there and
Well,
clean this
that
up.
I think is what you're going to have. You're going to have Agent Smith, right, who cleans up rogue agents.
That one's going to be called 007, right?
Yeah, I know.
It'll be a hero.
But, red pill, blue pill. Steve Bannon don't care.
Or the above.
Anyway, hey guys, we're 45 minutes in. Does anyone have any other prediction they want to throw on the pile today, or
We
come
need
back to what we
come
do
back
to
to talk
you?
about regulation. This is the year of seeing some enforcement in areas like software security starting of it. So we should spend some time talking about that another time.
I think regulation,
Well,
big
yeah,
nothing burger.
About Steve Bannon, I will share some wisdom from a former publisher of mine. He said, the one thing in the world you should always remember is it's a lot easier to throw grenades than it is to catch them.
Absolutely. And at least as it applies to the U.S., this is not a year for regulation. Not a year for regulation. Sorry. It's laws, as I said before, it's laissez-faire. Whatever goes. Batten down the hatches. Keep your heads low, guys. I'm sorry. If we don't have anything else, let's call it a wrap on our first show of Techstrong Gang. Just a quick reminder again, Predict is moving to Tuesday, January 14th. Techstrong Gang will be on 5 days a week. We're going to be recruiting some new gang members for this year too. So if any of my friends or want-to-be friends are out there who would like to participate in the gang, you can reach out to Techstrong Gang at techstronggroup.com, and we have our producers contact you. But I'm looking forward to it, and we have a lot going on all around. So Mitchell, Mike, Tracy, thanks for joining us today. Thank you for watching. As usual, we've got Techstrong TV all day following our gang this morning. Until tomorrow, though, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong. Have a great day, everyone. Happy New Year.